Every management system needs a communication process. Now, if you look at the project plan, then the communication process is the next step right after establishing the policy management process. So it's something that you should do in the very beginning of, let's say, the entire implementation project, if you will. Now on to the communication process. Now, first of all, what is communication? Now, let me give you a few examples. So, for example, if you have established a policy within your policy management process, as discussed earlier, when you publish this policy, for example, you upload the file to a SharePoint site and make it accessible to your employees, then this is a form of communication. If you inform your employees about some phishing campaigns that have been going on in the past, or you warn them about certain threats, this is communication. So it's a very specific, a very ISO term, if you will, but this is what communication is all about. So everything that has to do with sharing information, whether it's files, verbally communicating, electronic communication, and so on and so on. Now let's have a quick look at the activities within and see how they relate to the input on the left and the output on the right. Now, of course, it's very high level and it's simple, but I hope it will help you. There is something called communication plans. Now, a communication plan is a plan that basically determines what needs to be communicated, whom to communicate to, who is supposed to communicate, and when to communicate. So in case of these policies that we discussed earlier, you would probably determine that once we have released a new version, we would inform our staff about this new policy and inform them about this. So then they are supposed to read it, and hopefully also they have to acknowledge this policy. So this could be some sort of communication plan, right? So you would develop these plans and you would, of course, execute them. So once something is released, you trigger this, and then people are informed, hey, in our SharePoint, you can find the most recent version of our information security policy, for example. Now, next up, you have to learn lessons from communication. So did it have the desired effect? Could you reach all people? Was it in time? Was it too late? Were there any issues? So basic quality management, PDCA principles, we know about them. And then the tricky part is all of this will basically have to be an input for your management review process. And the management review process is supposed to assess certain inputs to the management review. So all this information is gathered within management reports and is then forwarded to the management review process. So for example, if you conduct a risk assessment and you log your risks in the risk register, then of course this will be some sort of input also for the management review. So it's theoretical, but basically all of this will then flow out to the other processes. And the input on the left, as you can imagine, is basically the ISMS. So all the information that is generated from certain processes will, of course, at some point have to be communicated and might also be an input for the management review process. And this is basically how a communication process is set up. Now, don't get distracted with this or feel intimidated. It's a very theoretical thing, but basically you have to find ways to publish and communicate information within your organization.